What's up guys, Houndish here, and today we have a massive Destiny 2 news video, and Bungie have dropped a weapon-focused TWAB with a lot of information for Witch Queen. So initially they speak about weapon crafting, how some of that is going to work for both legendary and exotic weapons, and they give us the most in-depth look at the crafting system that we've had to date. But on top of that, they show off some new weapons, a new pursuit weapon, as well as new trade options for them, and then a bunch of Foundry playlist weapons, and then they give us a bunch of patch note previews for Witch Queen, including buffs and nerfs to various different weapons, archetypes, exotics, and more. So we've got a lot to speak about in the video, guys. I hope you find this one useful as always, but now let's get into it. And initially they speak about crafting and the Enclave, which is going to be the destination for weapon crafting, and they say crafting a legendary weapon from scratch isn't a simple matter. Finding patterns, which are like weapon blueprints, as well as collecting materials and building your weapon is the starting point. But after crafting your tool of destruction, you'll begin to unlock its full potential through combat. So beginning the quest to craft, they say early in Witch Queen, you'll be given an introductory quest that runs you through the ins and outs of crafting. In the first and second missions of Witch Queen, free to all players, Guardians will uncover the Deep Sight ability and be introduced to the Enclave. So this is the new space, which is really cool. And they say this is where you'll begin to shape your first glaive. All of the necessary materials will be provided for your first crafted weapon, but you'll also be given a short tutorial on how to find those materials for future crafting. And a subset of weapons and archetypes will be craftable from the start, but more will be added in the future. And so the starting point will be patterns. This is the first requirement to crafting a weapon, and some will be acquired through quest completions, while others can be earned by completing various gameplay objectives. Once you've earned your desired pattern, it can be crafted at any time with the required materials. After crafting your first glaive, randomly rolled weapons throughout the game have a chance to drop with a new ability, Deep Sight Resonance. This will be used as you begin to target specific traits to craft. As an example, you'll find a Deep Sight Resonance legendary auto rifle with the Rampage perk. You can complete an objective and extract the essence of the perk to then craft a weapon with Rampage, or another perk that increases damage. And so pictured, they show us a Guardian holding Deep Sight Resonance weaponry, noted by red weapon borders. And then picture a Deep Sight Resonance weapon with no progress, but the essence is ready to be attuned through combat. And we can see, use this weapon in combat or to complete activities in order to attune this resonance and extract materials useful for shaping weapons. And then pictured is a Deep Sight Resonance weapon with full progress, and the essence is ready to be extracted. And they say, like current weapons, not every weapon pattern will be compatible with every trait, but you'll have a good list of traits to mix and match as you customize a given weapon to your desired specifications. In addition, through the Enclave, we'll be able to kick things up a notch and enhance our traits to strengthen their flavor. And once a weapon is crafted, Guardians may begin to increase its level by using it in activities and defeating enemies. This is where the bulk of the crafting playtime will be, but enhanced stats and traits can be unlocked when reaching higher levels, granting slight bonuses to your weapon's capabilities. And the goal through this system is to give players a reason to invest in their weapons far beyond what masterworking could offer in the past. And each weapon can now act as a long-tail pursuit as you look to make your freshly crafted weapon the best it can be. And we can see an image right here with some of the crafting options for a weapon. A high-impact frame requiring level 7 for 10 handling. And they say it can be intimidating to start making decisions on how to build your weapon, so we're also giving you the ability to reshape your crafted weapons if you want to mix up the components of your weapons after you finish crafting them. And you can switch up the barrel, mags, or traits, so you don't feel like you got too locked down on one path forever. And as Guardians begin to embrace this new system, you'll begin to see new legends rise. Some will prefer Hake and other foundries, but others may dabble in new weapons from Redacted, and we're excited to see which weapons you embrace. Additionally though, they talk about mementos, and they say there's also an opportunity for a bit of customization when it comes to appearances and activity-specific trackers. And they say at launch, one weapon memento will be available for players to earn through Gambit, unlocking a Gambit-themed appearance and tracker. If you rank up your weapon to max level and head back to the Enclave, you can apply your freshly earned memento for some sweet flair. And they say more of these will come online through Trials of Osiris and Grandmaster Nightfalls, and they've got additional plans for mementos down the line. And they describe this as a new endgame rarity cosmetic item for players to chase. So that sounds pretty interesting. But also, we'll be able to craft certain exotic weapons, and they say the upcoming Osteostriga exotic SMG and the 3 class-unique exotic glaives can also be crafted. But first, we'll need to find their respective patterns. But they say exotic crafting is more about fine-tuning something with a defined identity. We'll be able to customize things like barrels or stocks, while preserving the exotic's look and feel. And so that's a pretty good look at some of what we're going to be able to do with crafting. Definitely a very in-depth system. They're things that we're going to end up hunting down in the world and then progressing over time with the various objectives. And it looks like it gives us a lot of options for weapons, so give us your thoughts about it down below. Next though in the TWAB, they give us a quick preview of a new pursuit shotgun that we'll be able to get in Season 16, and this is the Reckless Endangerment. And they say it introduces the new Steady Hands perk for a massive handling boost after a kill, plus Snapshot. But they say there are several other shotguns in the release with more sought after PvP and PvE perks. But nonetheless, it looks pretty cool right there. And they speak about origin traits. And they say every weapon that's new or returning in Witch Queen will have an origin trait determined by its source in a third trait column, including all new legendary weapons and all returning Trials, Iron Banner, and Nightfall weapons. And origin traits will only appear on new drops of a weapon and won't be added retroactively to old drops. These traits vary in effect, but the guideline is that they either have high uptime or medium power effects, or low uptime and high power. And they say they're shipping 14 origin traits in total with Witch Queen in Season 16, but they expect to ship 3 new ones each season after Season 16. And for some examples, they say Trials of Osiris, Alacrity. They'll allow us to gain increased reload, stability, aim assist, and range when we're the last living member of a fire team or running solo. And it will be plus 20 reload and stability, as well as plus 10 aim assist and range. Another one for Nightfall Strikes will be Stunning Recovery, and stunning a champion partially refills your magazine and triggers health regeneration and improves recovery for a short duration. So it grants plus 60 instantly to health and plus 40 recovery for 3 seconds. And for Crucible, there is One Quiet Moment, which grants increased reload speed when out of combat, which is plus 40 reload stat when out of combat. But for strikes, there's also Vanguard's Vindication, and final blows with a weapon grant a small amount of health, which equals 7 health, and then anytime it makes sense, they say a weapon will have multiple origin traits selectable. For example, Nightfall weapons can select between Nightfall and Vanguard traits, Trials weapons can select between Trials and Crucible, and Pursuit weapons can select between the playlists. And additionally, in Season 16, they say they're replacing the old world loot pool with 12 new weapons in the style of Destiny 2 Year 1 Foundry weapon sets. 3 weapons each from the Soros, Omelon, Hake, and Viced foundries, plus 1 Foundry weapon for Vanguard, Gambit, and Crucible. And these are ones that we'll find in legendary engrams. So they look pretty cool, and they also say that each weapon will come with a Foundry origin trait themed around that Foundry's personality. So for Soros, there is Soros Synergy, and reloading grants the weapon bonus handling and reduces incoming flinch for a short time, so plus 40 handling and 20% flinch resistance for 6 seconds after reloading. And then for Hake, there are Hake Breach armaments, and the weapon deals increased damage against vehicles, turrets, barricades, and stasis crystals. And Omelon Fluid Dynamics, where the weapon has increased reload speed and stability for the top half of the magazine. Then finally Viced Stinger, with a chance on damage to partially refill this weapon's magazine. On top of that, they say each Foundry weapon's perk pools lean into that Foundry's identity. For big damage, look for Hake, for consistency look for Soros, and then for ability tie-ins and weird stuff, Omelon, and if you never want to stop firing, look out for Viced weapons. They also say that Foundry weapons that drop from a source aside from the world pool can switch between the Foundry trait and the source's trait. So for example, a roll on the new Gambit Hake high impact auto rifle might look like this: corkscrew rifling or polygonal rifling, armor piercing rounds or flared magwell, perpetual motion, focus fire, invader tracker, which is a Gambit origin trait, or Hake breach armaments, which is a Hake origin trait, kill tracker, which they'll speak about, and range masterwork. That's certainly interesting. They're definitely mixing things up, and they say kill trackers were once a reason to masterwork a weapon, but we now see no reason to gate these behind masterworking, and they'll be present by default on all weapons that shipped in Forsaken and later. But they say that exotic weapons prior to Forsaken will be updated in a later release. And then they say following in the armor team's footsteps, weapon mods for legendary weapons are now free and instant to insert. But they also say that players will now only drop 1 special ammo on death in Crucible, no matter how much they were carrying. And additionally, the maximum you can pick up off a special brick is 1 for a shotgun, fusion rifle or sniper rifle, or equivalent for other weapons. And scavenger mods add to this as normal, but will be evaluating their place in the Crucible in future. So that's definitely worth bearing in mind there. And finally, we do have a bunch of weapon tuning changes. There are a bunch of justifications that they have in the TWAB, but we're going to focus on the changes themselves. And for fusion rifles, they say they're increasing high impact fusion rifle damage per bolt from 62 to 64. And they say this will allow more rolls of the weapon to cross bolts to kill thresholds, but also they're increasing the high impact fusion rifle PvE damage bonus from 15 to 20%. For grenade launchers, they are reducing blinding and concussion grenade damage by 25%. And they say rocket launcher subfamilies have lacked meaningful differences for a while, and so they're adjusting damages by subfamily. For precision, it'll be 0.95 times, for high impact, 1 times, and then adaptive and aggressive, 1.05 times. So a slight shift in the subfamily damage of those. But next they'll be reducing the variance in aim assist scaling between low, which is 35 zoom, and high zoom, which is 60 zoom on sniper rifles, and the cone angle scaler has been increased by 25% on low zoom and reduced by 9% on high zoom, as to balance aim assist out across different scopes. And they say pulse rifles are taking slightly too long to kill red bar enemies in PvE, so they're buffing their damage versus miners by 10%. Next though, they say exotic primary weapons and trace rifles aren't sufficiently stronger than legendaries for them to be worth bringing into hard PvE content, particularly against miners. So they're increasing damage versus miners in PvE by 40%, and that change applies to all exotics that use primary ammo and includes most secondary effects, so things like perk-triggered explosions. That's a pretty big change right there. But they also say Chaperone is a terror in PvP, so they're reducing the passive range buff from 2 meters to 0.5 meters. It'll definitely be less effective. They say Duality is in a similar place but not quite as rangy, but they have reduced the passive range buff in slug mode when aiming down sights from 1.25 to 0.5 meters. However, the damage buff will no longer clear on reload. Then for Taraba, they say it now reduces its perk progress by half instead of clearing it on weapon stow, and they're also increasing the Ravenous Beast duration for damaging a player slightly, which should make the weapon a bit more appealing. Then with Ruinous Effigy, they're increasing the damage dealt by guarding with a Transmutation Sphere by 66%, and Transmutation Sphere multi-kills now count for Orb Generation armor mods. Then Lumina's getting a bit of a change. They're increasing the range stat from 44 to 59, and increasing the base stability stat from 46 to 56. Then with the Aga's Scepter, they say they've fixed being able to activate or continue using empowered mode while suppressed or stasis encased. They've also rebuilt the perk. It used to modify super charge rate, but it now freezes super recharge and deducts super directly, fixing several issues with activities that change charge rate and outliers for recharging based on the intellect stat, but the super should now drain more slowly while empowered. Then for Deadman's Tale, they're reducing the catalyst's hipfire rate of fire from 150 RPM to 130. They're also increasing the flinch received while using Lorentz driver, and for Forerunner, they're increasing the ammo picked up from his special ammo brick from 2 to 3. And from 4 to 5 with a scavenger mod. So there are those and a bunch of other changes, guys, that they're going to break down in the full patch notes when Witch Queen launches. Definitely going to be a very significant update in terms of changes. And they say to prepare for the launch of Witch Queen, D2 will undergo scheduled downtime from 7 PM PST on February 21st to 9 AM PST. So that's between 3 AM UTC and 1700 UTC on February 22nd, which is going to be 14 hours of downtime. But Preload for Witch Queen is planned to become available on all platforms beginning at 9 PM PST on February 21st. But they do say they'll give us more updates as we get closer to launch. So bear that in mind, and once again, an absolutely massive twab that we got right there. A final couple of mentions for this video today, but Bungie Help tweeted and said that players who qualified to earn the Circumflex Diacratic emblem should now see it in the general section of their emblem collections. If the emblem is not available, players should log out and log back in before checking again. And initially they had put out a message saying that they'd started to roll the emblems out, I believe on Tuesday, but it took a bit longer to actually get it available to all players. So you should be able to find it there, as long as you played a round of Dares of Eternity between the end of December and the 22nd of January essentially. So that's one thing, but also Destiny 2 tweeted, all new players who log in between January 2nd and February 22nd will receive the Festive Sparks emote. Some players were asking for clarification, and it is indeed a new player emote. So essentially it means a new account between January the 2nd and February 22nd will get access to that emote. Certainly a little bit of frustration from veteran players who'd like to get access to it as well. Perhaps it'll be the case that Bungie will make it available a little bit later on for everyone. Give us your thoughts about it down below. And a final mention for any Guardians who really care about shaders, but DMG responded to somebody on the Bungie forums who'd said, can we make more surfaces on armor sets actually shadable? And he said the team has been putting more effort into this over the past few months. With some backend changes made in Beyond Light, it's a bit easier while crafting new armor sets to have shaders applied to all pieces. unless there are specific decals or artistic choices. We can't make any promises about older gear, but newer ornaments and armor sets should all be taking shaders on the majority of surfaces moving forward. So if you like a nice polished suit of armor with a coat of paint, keeping as many of those surfaces customizable as possible is something that Bungie are focusing on, so bear that in mind. But otherwise for today guys, that is everything we have to round up in the video. Definitely some interesting weapon info, so as always, share your thoughts with us down in the comment section. But if you've enjoyed the video today, a rating below really does help us out as well, and definitely get subscribed to the channel as we've got a lot more content to post over the next few weeks, including the launch of Witch Queen and all of the info leading up to it. So also feel free to turn on notifications and I'll keep you up to date with everything you need to know. But otherwise for now, thank you for tuning in guys, and I hope you have an awesome day.